Hi, everyone. This is Amanda Wiss, Tina from A Nightmare on Elm Street, and you're listening to Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Enjoy.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? This is Nico Chan. I just want to welcome everybody to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. I just want to say thank you to anybody who gives us their time of day, because this is something that I'm passionate about. This is something that my fellow co-hosts are all passionate about, and we just started talking about this on the timeline on Twitter, and we said, man, let's do it. Let's go with it. This will be fun. So yeah, my name is Nico Chan. I'm 28. I live in Tallahassee, Florida. Love horror movies ever since I was a little kid. And I remember being about 6 or 7 years old, and my babysitter was watching me and my little brother, and we went to the movies, to the movie store, to rent movies.
Wow.
Back in the day, you didn't have Netflix or YouTube. You had to go get VHSs from Blockbuster. And for some reason, we ended up getting Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason Lives, I believe, is the name of it.
Great movie.
And I remember being absolutely terrified when they dug up the grave, the lightning striking the metal beam.
Part
And
6.
we literally paused it and kept hitting play for the entire movie because we were so scared. I really don't know if that's the movie that hooked me, but that's the earliest memory I have of watching a horror movie. So I'm gonna roll with that, and yeah, I just want to say thank you again for everybody who tunes in, and we hope you enjoy it. Drew, what got you into horror movies?
My grandmother, spent summers with her every year, and my granddad, and she was bedridden, so she was always in the front, but they had all the TV channels. I mean, all the TV channels. So we would stay up all night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, watching just Tales from the Crypt, everything else. She brought the love for it, but my favorite movie that pulled me into it was it's called The Blob.
Yeah.
It is the cheesiest thing you probably have laid your eyes on, but I absolutely loved it, and just like I was always on the edge of my seat. I was like 8 years old, but I loved it. And yeah, that's the one that's got me hooked, and I have a fondness for the horror genre because of my grandmother, because of the tight relationship me and her had. So it just kept alive with me.
Brian, what got you hooked?
Hey, so name's Brian Hathaway. So I can't remember what I ate for lunch yesterday, but I can remember this vivid memory for some reason. I was on the school bus in 4th grade on the way to my grandparents' house to be dropped off, and I knew who Freddie and Jason was and stuff like that from just pop culture, but the kid in front of me said, "Hey, there's this new movie called Jason Goes to Hell," and at the end, Freddy's glove comes up and grabs the mask.
Yeah.
So yeah, spoiler alert for that amazing movie that's splits a lot of horror fandom. But Jason Goes to Hell is actually my hook, and so I went with my next door neighbor, who's my buddy, and we used to go up to T&M Video and rent the VHSs. And honestly, I rented a whole bunch of movies just based on their covers, and so that's kind of what kind of got me hooked.
So, my name is Mike Settle. I'm from Lake Wales, Florida, good old Polk County. What got me into horror? I actually got into horror late. I saw the first Scream when it came out. I was way too young to see that movie. And I know it's not scary, but it had a lot of had a lot of gore and violence. I didn't quite understand what was going on. It scared the crap out of me. Um, Even though I know it's not really a scary movie per se, but I I hold on. But I also, so a little bit later, and I know this isn't a real horror movie either, but I saw The Sixth Sense, and again, I was young. I'm the baby here. And you see the dead bodies, and it's really scary. And I didn't quite understand what was going on, but I know I didn't like it. So I took about, and listen, I was a giant wuss. Okay, I mean a giant wuss when it came to this stuff. And the next horror movie I saw, and this is a true story, the next horror movie that I saw purposefully was Rob Zombie's Halloween in 2007. And and
Wow.
from that, now I know that's late, but hear me out. After I saw that movie, I'm like, okay, this genre is actually the best. I went back and watched every single horror movie I could get my hands on. All the Halloweens, all the Nightmares, all the Jasons, all the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, anything I could get my hands on. And so from that moment, I've been hooked, man. And what really got me back into it was obviously the release of 2018 Halloween. It's clearly my favorite franchise, but I'm also a big fan of Freddy and the Nightmare franchise. But my favorite horror movie is John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween, which we are going to talk about at some point.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's all of our stories, all of our horror stories, if you will. And the movie we're covering today, guys, the classic 1984, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven's first big break, or at least in my opinion. Uh, Brilliant director. This was the movie that kind of woke the world up to not only a kind of a psychological horror, it changed the slasher genre, but it gave Wes Craven his big break. And fellas, I guess we'll just start with the opening scene, which is you kind of think, and it's a good red herring, because it starts with Tina in a boiler room, and it's creepy, and you see the glove, you see Freddy making the glove, and that just kind of gets you right in the mood, man. Or it does me. I'm like, okay, I'm locked in. Let's go. And you see Tina in the boiler room, and you think Tina is going to be your main character throughout this movie. And Wes would do the same thing in '96 with
Hmm.
Scream. Well, we'll talk about it. That's kind of a Wes Craven deal. But I really love that scene. The opening scene is one of my favorite scenes in all of horror movies, all of movies, actually.
Oh yeah, I agree with you, Mike. The opening scene of Nightmare on Elm Street, in my opinion, might be the best opening scene of any horror movie that
It's
I can
close.
think of off the top of my
Right.
head. Especially the classics to me. It's
Right.
just because you're wondering what's going on here. What is this guy making? What is this girl doing in this boiler room in nightgown? And so yeah, I agree with you, man. It really sucks you in that first 5-10 minutes, man. It's great. Brian, what are your thoughts on that first opening scene?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. And honestly, I think what makes this movie right in the opening, not only that scene, but you can't really talk about it without talking about the soundtrack.
Oh,
Because I
yes.
mean,
Yes.
honestly, I mean it's probably a perfect score that's right up there with Halloween. I
I
mean,
agree.
just Freddy's coming for you and the whole thing. So um, no, I agree, and I think that for the most part, this movie holds up fantastically now, just as well as it did, all those years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point. To me, that's how I kind of judge the older horror movies. How well do they still hold up in 2019? Like I was talking to my mom earlier. I don't think like the movie The Exorcist holds up well to me. Like it's back then it was claimed to be the scariest movie ever. I rewatched it a couple months ago. I was like, yeah, that was The Exorcist. But to me, just the character of Freddy Krueger is so unique because he's not just a guy in a jumpsuit behind a mask killing people. He's got he's burnt all over. He's got a unique weapon he uses as a signature way he kills people, and he's funny. He has one liners. He not only just puts fear into people, he screws with their head. Like he like in the opening scene with Tina, he cuts his own fingers off just to mess with her. And then he'll allow her to rip his own face off and just show the skull underneath it just to mess with her. I think Freddy is, I mean, he's obviously the funniest because he talks, but I just love the psychological head games he plays with his victims in their nightmares. Drew, what are your thoughts?
So like the opening scene, obviously for me, is actually my favorite scene out of all the series, every whole shebang. That's my favorite scene. It's probably one of the, to me, perfect pitch
Right.
game. It's just like, it's just there. Everything that you need in that scene, the kill, everything that leads up to it, and then actually go, it's just perfect. It's got humor. It's got his sick humor in there, like with Freddy. It's just yeah, just
Well, and it's just the idea. It's the idea that you can't fall asleep, and like you said, it's psychological. It messes with you on a whole nother level. It's supposed to be, when you're asleep, it's supposed to be your safe space, and it's when you're most vulnerable, and Freddy takes that away. And I think that that's the thing that this movie does better than I think the sequels. Whereas in the sequels, it was a little bit more comedy based. New Line became the house that Freddy built, and as he became more marketable, and this one he's scary, and this movie kind of takes that blurry line, and you can't really tell as much as you can in the sequels, like what's a dream, what's real life. Can we tell if this is, like I said, a dream or part of the movie, the real life part of the movie.
Right. And everything you just touched on, I have almost that exact same thing written down, man. I mean, in this movie, Freddy is scary. And that's the difference between this movie and some of the other movies that come later, is he's legitimately scary. The look of Freddy, by the way, the makeup artist had just got done with Michael Jackson's Thriller. And so the same makeup guy did the original Freddy makeup, and he does a great job. He makes him look like a real burn victim. He funny behind the scenes story. He actually designed the look of Freddy on a pepperoni pizza.
Oh wow!
And
Yep.
and that's right. And that's exactly how Freddy's face kind of looks. If you know that, if you don't know that, maybe you don't think that. But once you find that out, you can't unsee it. It's still scary, but
for that.
I do see pizza. But I mean, the look of Freddy and the atmosphere, the cinematography of this movie is great. Just the way it's shot, it never shies away from just being scary. Even the daytime scenes have a weird kind of atmosphere, and and we'll talk about it later, but the scene in the classroom where it starts to transition into a dream, but you don't know that. And that's something the later sequels don't do well. When it's a dream, because all this crazy out there weird wacko stuff happens, but in this movie it's so seamless. You don't know that that she's fallen asleep, and I think they do that really well. And again, the score, and you mentioned it, and I meant to touch on this. The score is great. The score is probably the most underrated, and I know Halloween's gets talked about, and it's a great score. And I know the sha-sha thing from the Friday movies gets a lot of love, but this score is probably my favorite. It really is.
It's not there. I mean, without it being the score being as great as it was, if it had been something else, I think it might have lost a little bit of flavor in the actual movie. To be honest,
I agree.
I agree.
100%.
I actually read an article today that I didn't know this, but on October 5th, 2014, Wes Craven went to Twitter. It was the 30-year anniversary of the movie, and he actually tweeted that Freddy Krueger's appearance was inspired by a man who stared at him through the window one night.
Right.
So that's just combining that with the pepperoni pizza.
Nightmare fuel. Nightmare fuel, man.
Big time.
Yeah, that's crazy. One more thing that he tweeted that I'd like to bring up, because it's in the beginning scene too, is you remember when Nancy's laying in her bed and she has the crucifix with her, and you see the image of Freddy's head and his arm and his razor glove coming out of the wall. He tweeted that this scene was shot by stretching spandex across a hole and having Freddy press against it. I didn't know that either. I didn't know if that's just one of them scenes you're like, oh shoot, they made the remake. That's such an awesome scene. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into the remake, but that was such a great scene to me too, as well. Just the stretching over Nancy's head. And Mike, did you want to talk about Tina's actual death and how they pulled that stunt off?
So, I mean, I'll go into it a little bit, then I'm going to pass it off to Brian. He might have better notes on it. But just the way they use that rotating room. And I know a lot of people don't know that, but they nailed or screwed all the furniture into the ground, and then had a set where they could flip the room, and it's done really well. And I know they used it again later for Glenn. We'll talk about Glenn's, but that's probably my favorite death scene. And Glenn's is great. It's the most famous one anyway. It's got all the blood and stuff, but I really love Tina's death. The way she's dragged up the wall, man. The first time I ever saw this movie was like I went and watched it right after I got done with Halloween 07. Like it might have been 4 days. I started binging Nightmare, and that scene scared the crap out of me, even in 07. And I wasn't that young. I just remembered, what in the world? And
Were you still a big puss then too?
No. I had moved on. No. Hey, I'm still a big puss, pal. No. So I love that scene. And the way they shot it, the way they got that shot, I know it scared the actress to death. Like the way, but she was a trooper. She was a trooper more than once. She's in the body bag later on. She's claustrophobic, and she still did that scene. So props to her. I forget her name, but big props to her. That the way they shot that scene was ahead of its time. I don't know a lot of other movies that had been doing it at the time. I know they used it later in the Electric Boogaloo movie, the same room at New Line. They used the same room to flip it. But yeah, man, that's probably my favorite kill out of all of them.
Brian, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, actually, and I think it's kind of funny how, when you watch a movie when you're younger, and I guess my younger's a little bit different. I mean, I'm 36, so it was, when you're younger, your favorite kill is one thing. Like when I was younger, it was the Glenn death scene, obviously. And obviously, I mean, I think that's one of the most memorable scenes of probably any horror movie ever. But now, when you go back and watch it again, as an adult, definitely Tina's is my favorite. So, no, I didn't have any notes on that scene particularly, but I did want to say that I did find out that it's actually, I don't know how many people know this, but it's based on real life events. This movie Craven said he came up with the idea after he read an LA Times article about a boy suffering from nightmares, told his parents he was afraid he would die if he fell asleep. So he'd stay up on end, coffee pot in his room. Does that sound familiar? They found him, and they found him dead. Yeah. They found him dead from a nightmare, basically. So, I know Nika said that he had some notes on Glenn's death scene that was very interesting, I think.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a little bit. I got a question that just came to my mind, guys. All right, so when Tina's getting murdered in her sleep, put yourself in the boyfriend's mind, or I don't know if that's even her boyfriend, the dude she was hooking up with.
They were getting after it. So
he was definitely taking her to Pound Town, and my man Johnny Depp was hating life in the other room. But I want you to put yourself in that guy's shoes right then. Like, what the hell are you thinking? Like, you get up and this girl is just like freaking out, and she's like convulsing, and she gets pulled up a wall, and then she gets cut. Like, you get hit in the face by her head. Like, what are y'all gonna think of in that moment?
Oh, there ain't no thinking, brother. I'm running.
I was gonna say, I'm out of here.
Like real life, I'm running. Like I see some shit like that, and I know there's nothing I can do. She starts going up the wall. Oh yeah, even with my wife. If my wife started doing, she going up the wall, something like that. I'm like, got to go.
Deuce. I'm out.
Well, in 2019, we go live, on Twitter or Facebook.
Look at this.
It ain't me, cops.
I'm at least gonna take a pic though. Hey, I'm gonna take a pic, and there's a good reason why.
I'm gonna take a selfie.
I am, because in this movie they try to blame this guy for the death. I don't want to be blamed for this death. You see this crap? I'm gonna film the whole thing.
True. Good point.
Right. I'm not trying to get blamed for this.
Absolutely.
Right.
Brian?
Yeah, no doubt. Exactly what you said. Nowadays, you'd film it probably, but when I watch scary movies, and especially as I got a little bit older, it wouldn't actually scare me because you'd put yourself in somebody's position and be like, oh, okay, well, I do that differently. Oh, well, that wouldn't happen. Somebody would do that really differently. But it, like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, if you're the guy in that movie, you're done, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so
I can't wait to break that movie down.
Right. So in this one, it's the same thing. It's like, all right, well, what would you do? Well, you'd be framed for murder the same way. I mean, unless it was 2019, you had a cell phone. So,
well, after that scene, the cops show up. The other three kids, they're freaking out, like, what the hell just happened? And the next day, Nancy and Rod are walking to school, and the cops catch them. And this is where Rod goes to jail, and Nancy is at school. I think this is another great scene. Nancy's nap in school. This is another really, really good scene. And she's just in the back of the room nodding off, and all of a sudden she wakes up and she sees Tina's body in a body bag in the hallway.
Oh,
And and of course, typical white person in a horror movie, instead of avoiding the danger, they run to it. So, and she starts chasing his body down the hallway, and
Nancy.
yeah, and she runs into the hall monitor with the red and green sweater. And we know who wears the red and green sweater. Do y'all have any thoughts on this scene?
I do. Real quick, I'm going to jump in and then I will pass it around. So this is my favorite scene. Okay.
Really?
It's my favorite scene in the whole movie because of what I spoke about earlier, where you can't tell it becomes a dream until the boiler room. And I love that you can tell, but you can't. Something feels a little off about it, but it's so subtle that it's really hard to.
You're questioning it the whole way through with it.
Right. You're kind of wondering, is this really because there's no clue, there's no giveaway that, oh, this is a dream now. She just nods off in class, and then I'm not gonna lie, I laugh every time "Where's your hall pass?" like that. Right, that's what I laugh every time. And so again, there's a little bit of humor in Nightmare, which is way different from the other franchises. But I love that scene, man. The Nancy, the whole thing, man. And when she gets to the boy, like, it's a great scene. It's my favorite, definitely.
That's interesting. I mean, as far as your favorite, it's a good one. It kind of shocked me that's your favorite out of all of the whole movie.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
But I'm like you. The reason why I liked that scene so much is because instead of it just kind of dying down so quickly, they come back and they want to put you right back. They want to get that heart beating real quick, and then you're like I said, you're questioning yourself. You're like, is this really happening? Is she really seeing this? Is she asleep? You got the questions, and then bam, they get answered for you when she starts going down.
Right.
Well, this is one of those sequences where we were talking about earlier was actually scary, and like the phenomenal visuals, like with them dragging the body and everything, like, it loses any of the comedy like the sequels had, and like this one just went straight for like, hey, this is probably actually the first scary thing to me for the movie.
Right.
One thing I would like to bring before we move on to the next scene that I thought was very interesting is I would like to know how Nancy got the wherewithal to burn her own arm to wake up. You know what I mean? I was just
smart.
It is smart. But it's just like, I wonder what would cause her to think that or to just do that.
Script.
Right. Well, that's true. But also, and something I want to talk about when we go over our positives, or we could just talk about it now. I think Nancy is probably the best final girl ever, because she's not your run up the stairs and trip. Not your, oh, big boot, like they make fun of it in Scream, but she's actually she's a badass.
Yeah.
I mean, she fights back. She's smart. She stands on her own 2 feet, and that's kind of like, I'm not going to let you kill me. I'm smart. I'm going to burn my arm. And while in that moment, I know I wouldn't be smart enough. I don't know what I would do. I probably would just die. So I know. So I give her all the props in the world for that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, man. It's just, and after this scene, she gets burned on the arm, and now Nancy is she's at the house. Now here's another iconic scene. She's in the bathtub, nodding off. Her mom's knocking on the door. Don't fall asleep in the tub, Nancy. Don't fall asleep. And then we all see what comes up next. Freddy's glow comes out from between her legs, and I wrote down in my notes that Freddy is high key a pervert. Because he's always, sticking his tongue out all the girls.
He's a high key child He's a high key child predator.
Oh,
for sure.
Oh, yeah. The gloves come between her legs and all that. And then,
by the way, if you ever are looking for Heather Langenkamp's autograph, that's the only picture out there with her autograph. Like, everybody wants them to get that picture autographed.
Well, makes sense. That makes sense.
All right. It makes total sense. It's definitely her most famous scene. And by the way, this kind of brings me to a point. The practical effects in this movie they still hold up. The glove.
I agree.
Right. So I mean, I know that's not that hard to do with the glove in the water, but it just kind of takes me to the point where the practical effects, they still hold up all these years later. I mean, it's been over 30 years now, and some stuff still, it doesn't look cheesy. That glove coming up through the water is not cheesy. When you're watching that movie at the right time, you're sucked into what's going on. She dozes off in the tub after her mom says, "Don't fall asleep." And you're like, I'm not going to fall asleep, whatever, lady. And then she dozes. And then that glove starts to come up. The first time I ever saw that movie, I was like, whoa, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
whoa.
That's done really well. Right.
It really is crazy to think that this movie is 35 years old, though.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
It's like this movie is older than, me, Mike. Brian was 1 year old when it came out.
Yeah.
Right.
But I know Mike's
Don't
got
worry,
some.
Mike.
Mike and Drew have
Don't
some.
worry, Brian. I was 1 year old too, man.
Okay, I appreciate it.
We're the
Somebody
I
OGs
says-
know.
here.
I know Mike and Brian have some hot takes on this. On the next kill. Now we're in.
So wait, before we go to the
go
next
ahead,
part,
Drew.
one thing. So have y'all ever like looked into and seen like the deleted scene, with Nancy and how with Marge, her mom, where like they go into deeper detail of what happened or why they burnt Freddy Krueger,
Oh, yeah.
what he did.
Hey,
They-
tell us about it because I actually haven't seen those. It's not on my
Right.
DVD that I have.
I've heard about it, but I don't know the details. So yeah, go ahead, man.
I mean, like I was going back and looking through it, and I was like looking at it, and they're basically what it does is they give more dialogue of why the parents and why they did what they did, with the whole he's a child murderer and everything, and then that he actually killed their friend, her friends and family, siblings. So like one of her brothers or sisters was actually a part of one of the kids that got killed by him. Like I haven't seen it either, but it was like in an article, and part of me now wants to go see if I can find this deleted scene. It's got to be on YouTube. It's got to
Oh,
be.
it's on there somewhere. It has.
Gotta be. So I am definitely gonna go search and find that and watch it because I'd like to know why was it deleted, or maybe after watching it you can see why it's deleted.
Right.
But I thought it was kind of neat that there was a deleted scene that had more info to do with your main character.
Right.
No,
And
I
I
actually
agree.
vaguely remember watching that scene, and like on the one of the Nightmare DVDs that I used to have before the Blu-ray releases. But it to me was a scene that definitely should have stayed for that exact reason.
Right. Right.
So here's going to be another hot topic for us. Glenn and Nancy are meeting up now. They want to go see Rod in jail because they got this hunching that something's going on. And I know two of my co-hosts aren't very fond of this death. So they go into the jail. They start talking to the officers and say, "Hey, we need to see Rod. We just want to see if he's okay. We want to see if he's okay." And they're like, go home. He's fine. He's passed out of sleep. He's okay." But they keep being persistent, and they keep saying, "We just want to see if he's okay. We just want to see if he's okay." And then all of a sudden, we go back into the jail cell with Rod. And after this first amazing death with Tina, this elaborate death with Tina,
Right.
we see a bedsheet looking like a king cobra coming out of and it just slowly wraps around this guy's neck. And as soon as they walk in, they see him getting hung. Like, to me, guys, that's such an anticlimactic death after
It was
Tina's
terrible.
death and the hallway scene. It's just,
Right.
I mean, I know it. My
It was
thoughts are they could have done a little bit more, but what are you
Right.
guys' thoughts, Mike?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. There's been a couple times when I've watched this movie that scene takes me out of the movie. Like it's really kind of that bleh. And I'm not expecting every kill in this franchise to be wow. I know that's what they did later, and but it's not even practical in my opinion. I mean, if you're gonna do a practical kill, then just have somebody shoot him or stab him or something like every kill in Scream. So, I mean, I just no, really. But hey man, come on.
Keep bringing Scream up, brother. I want to let the chopper sing.
No, we got that later. So, but no, in reality, that scene doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I'm just not a big fan of let's choke this guy. Scary. I think it falls flat, especially after you've seen Tina's death. And
it's definitely flat. It's definitely a flat kill. Like almost like either do it a little bit more with a little more enthusiasm, or sit up with it, or honestly just don't do the kill.
Right.
That's the only one that really annoys me.
he's one that could be killed off screen, in my opinion. Like, you're like, oh, Rod's dead. All right.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, when I was doing some of these other things, I was like looking at some of the fan sites that they got there. And so I was like, what's the top 50 kills or whatever in all of the series? So top to bottom, every series has been done. Like they rank the kills. Do you want to know what it ranked as in 1 to 50? Rod being hung in his jail cell?
Is this just
49.
Nightmare on Elm Street or just all kills in general?
All kills through all the series.
Franchise.
All the whole franchise.
Oh,
All
okay.
kills.
Yeah.
They rank the top 50.
Okay. And just Nightmare. Got it.
Dead
49.
last.
49.
The franchise, yeah. He's 46. It's 46.
There are
Oh, wow.
there are
And
worse
that's,
ones
and
later
that's
on.
the fan site. You know, the fan, there's, the 46. I mean, I don't know how many kills total there is.
There's a lot.
14. I know there's a lot.
Right.
But 46 out of the 50, that kind of tells you what you need to know.
What's that? What's under that, real quick, if you don't mind? Do you have that information by any chance?
Oh, I got it pulled up right here.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I'd like to know
right.
what's worse than that.
Right. That because I don't think there are some scenes in Freddy's Dead.
Oh yeah.
That are much worse than Rod's
Okay,
kill.
so you got the let's see here. So right here. You got Spencer running out of the video game lives and Freddy's dead.
I figured that would be
Of
there.
course.
Then you got you got a tie for 48 is random party goer gets stabbed. There's
Yeah,
two
that's
stabbed. I mean it's
No.
very generic stuff there. And then you get Carrie gets stabbed through the chest in part 2.
yeah, in part 2. Yeah, part 2's got some lame kills too, by the way.
Yeah.
Part two
Got
is
some cool
just-
kills, but
Part 2 is a cluster, but go ahead, Drew.
yeah, go ahead.
And then you got Mark when he gets shredded into a comic book on the Dream Child.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
that's
now hold
terrible.
on now.
No,
I
that's
was kind of
terrible.
come on.
Okay, but see, look, I'm just pulling this from just
Right.
like a random fan.
I kind of like that kill.
It's called Screen Crush. So I mean, it's just a random thing. I just kind of searched because I wanted to see if like these folks kind of think like I do, like far as where the kill scenes go. Like, do they get the same thing out of it I do? Do they feel like this could have just been like left out?
Right. No, I definitely think Rod's death should be lower than even some of those, man. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I just want to know what jail can you just walk up and look down and just, hey, check out this window with this, prisoner just chilling in the jail cell. Like that to me takes me out of it even more than the kill itself. Plus, I mean, like you said, I know they try to do something different, but I mean, geez, just have him Mary slashes just start cutting him up because that's to me is Freddy more than the crazy ridiculous kills. But yeah, like I said, the prison cell to me, like where can you just walk up in any prison and jail and look down, not even up or anywhere, and just hey, have a little conversation or check out the prisoner that's hanging out in there. So
Brian,
Yeah, can I say something?
I
Can
feel
I say
like
something
you
real quick about
are
that?
like I am. Oh, my bad, Nico.
Go ahead, Drew. I'll go after you.
I was just gonna say with Brian, he sounds just like I am, like with movies. Like I like realistic things, like in
Me
there
too.
to let it go with it. To me, like I get more involved in the story that way. Like
Right.
if like he's saying, like nobody's just gonna walk up into the prison and see that shit. Make it make sense. If you can make it make sense, and I can see it in everyday life here, and I can kind of go do it, and all of a sudden I'm thinking about, oh shit, I remember this.
Right.
Mhm.
I get into the story so much easier that way. My bad, Nico. Go ahead.
They kind of treat the jail cell like with Georgie, and you can just look down into the sewer and
Right,
see
right.
him. It's like that. A jail cell is not like that. But
Right.
but Brian made a good point that I wanted to touch on real quick was if you're going to kill Rod in there, if you're going to hang him, at least cut on him. Like remember in Freddy vs. Jason with the other guy who escaped the psychiatric ward. And his brother had gotten killed by Freddy.
Right.
And, he cuts his face in the dream. And then, he writes Freddy's back or whatever on his, he burns Freddy's back on his back or whatever.
Oh, I love that kill, by the way.
It's like, if you're going to kill, if Freddy is going to kill somebody, I think they should have something that shows it wasn't Rod who committed suicide.
Right.
Right.
Leave no doubt that Freddy Krueger is the one who killed him. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm glad you said that and they don't stick with it throughout the series. The whole franchise, they don't really stick with this as canon. But a lot of Freddy's earlier kills are supposed to be made to look like it was somebody else. So nobody believes the people when they say, "Oh, Freddy's a real thing." It's supposed to be set up like this is a suicide, or Rod killed Tina, or it makes now it falls flat when we get to Glenn's death. Where how in the hell did anybody do this? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But right,
You mean
right.
nobody would just run and drive their face into a TV?
Oh
Like
no.
in 3?
Oh yeah, dude, that's the best. I'm sorry, that's still one of my favorite kills of all time. I love that freaking kill.
I
But no,
agree with
man.
you.
I mean, it doesn't. As long as it makes sense to the story, like Tina getting dragged up a wall by a thing that you can't see makes sense in this movie. It the jail cell. I guess we can move on from it because I feel like we're harping on it, but uh, it just falls flat. It's just bleh. It's just there, and I feel like Rod. It sounds weird because it's a horror movie, but Rod deserved a better death.
Right. Yeah. It's
I
Team
agree.
Rod,
bad
hashtag
taste.
Team
Bad
Rod.
taste in your mouth.
Yeah, hashtag Team Rod, baby.
Excuse me. Well, after this, Nancy's mom is concerned about her, wants to take her, get her tested, get her sleep tested, and this is where Nancy learned something kind of cool. While she's asleep, she goes through another nightmare. I really didn't take as many notes as I should on this part, so I'm just kind of
That's all
winging
right.
this part.
Right.
But when she wakes up, she's like, "I got Freddy's hat with me." So she learned something. So her and Glenn start to let's plot a plan together. Let's try and I'm gonna go to sleep and set an alarm, and you wake me up when this alarm goes off. So go ahead, Mike.
No,
I
you're
see
good. No, you're
see
good. I want you to. No, you can keep going. I'm gonna crap all over Johnny Depp when you get a minute.
Oh, go okay. So they get this plan to hey, we're gonna try and bring Freddy into the real world, and it's 1984, man. They ain't got no cell phone. They ain't got no YouTube.
Right.
My man Johnny Depp goes to sleep. He can't stay up. There's nothing to
Exactly. Exactly what I was gonna say.
do.
He's
He's like,
stuck.
I can't just stare at this girl sleeping who ain't giving me no booty. So I'm just gonna go
Yeah,
to
that's
sleep.
exactly right.
Yeah,
He's the worst. I'm like, why you planned with the wrong guy, man.
yeah.
Man, Nancy sets
So
all this elaborate stuff up. She's got the tripwire, the hammer, the light bulb that explodes. Great stuff. And Glenn falls asleep like an asshole. Man, I hate that. I like Johnny Depp in this movie, but he sucks in that scene, man.
yeah, the Freddie definitely takes care of him for falling asleep on the girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
Oh,
that's actually my favorite kill in this for this. Even though I think my favorite scene is the Tina death, but like my favorite kill is definitely when Glenn goes out.
it's hard to beat, man. It's one of the best kills of all time.
Favorite one.
So do y'all want to just go ahead and transition to Glenn being back at his house? Nancy's trying to call him on the phone or whatever. The parents ain't having it.
I love the
So
dad. I
yeah,
love Glenn's dad in this movie. He's hilarious.
yeah.
Sorry, I have to
Glenn's
call you
that.
tomorrow. Click.
Yeah, and just leaves the phone off the hook. 1984 style.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, my man Johnny Depp's laying in his waterbed, listening to music and watching the TV. How can you hear both of them? So,
It never made sense to me either.
yeah, do one of y'all want to break this scene down? I know this is one of the most famous.
Right. I mean,
Brian, what are your thoughts on it?
right. Who's got the best notes, I guess, is what we would.
Oh, I mean, didn't somebody have like the actual like how it was actually done written down? Like, I mean, I think the visuals are amazing, but even as a kid, I was like, damn, that's a lot of blood for like one person.
Right.
I mean, it like fills up the whole room. But I mean, but still, you can't take away the visuals. And you also, I know I was at the age where I was just starting to kind of spend the night with people, and there was a couple of my friends that actually had water beds, and I swear
Oh,
every
no.
single time I laid
No,
on
I
that bed,
never
I was
wanted
like,
one because of that.
I thought of that every single time.
Yep.
Man, no thank you to no thank you to that. I'm kind of glad I didn't have to go through that. I'll be honest with you. I'm glad I missed that. So, I mean, I don't have exactly how it was written down, but they did wash. So they cleaned off the. They actually clean. I don't remember which order they shot it in, but they had to clean off that room to get it ready for the next kill, which was, I believe they actually shot Glenn's first, if I'm not mistaken. I think they shot Glenn's first and had to clean off all that fake blood, all that corn syrup and stuff. Or actually, I think it was dye. It was like red dye. And then they had to clean all that off and then get it ready for Tina's death. And so they used the same room because the director had to be upside down to get that shot of the blood going like a volcano out of the bed. and the director had to be upside down. I believe he almost fell, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's what it said in the Never Sleep Again documentary I've seen a bunch. So, I mean, just the way, uh, again, the movie is ahead of its time in practical effects, the way it was shot, the shots they got with the budget they had. And that's one of those. It's just the small budget that they did have, the way they were able to get all that blood to shoot out of there like that is really, really well done. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time I ever saw it, when he gets sucked into the bed, I was like, oh yeah, I dropped some. I was like, here we go. I don't know what's gonna happen, but here we go. And man, I was not expecting that. So I will say, in hindsight, it's a little hokey, it's a little campy how much blood they use, but it's still a great scene.
Oh, it's
Mike,
absolutely great.
fun that you mentioned. I actually had that tweet brought up that Wes Craven did on the 30-year anniversary. He said that he was told that over 500 gallons of fake blood were used during that scene.
Jesus.
Holy smokes!
500 gallons.
Holy smokes, man!
Yeah, that's a lot of blood, man. A lot of fake blood for one scene, but hey, it's still talked about 35 years later.
And you know they actually put that as a ranking number 2 on that top 50 list. They
That
put
makes
that
sense.
and Death on 2, and then they got Tina as number 1.
Let me ask you a quick question. It's not in this movie, but is the puppet one number 3? The ventriloquist? Or
Oh, I love
the
that
puppet
kill.
one?
Let's see.
Because I'm willing to bet puppet is 3 and 4 is it's prime time bitch with the TV.
Let's see. Top. I'll go for top 5 right here just for you. We got no. This is just per that one website. You got Tina 1. You got Glenn is 2. Then you got the human puppet 3. Then Jennifer gets Welcome to Primetime in Dream Warriors.
Yep.
And then number 5 is Joey gets waterbedded to death in Dream Master.
Okay. Well, guys,
Human body, by the way, holds 1.5. I think it's like 1.5 gallons of blood or something like that. So
It's definitely not the number that Nico gave
500
us.
gallons or something.
yeah. I think the ending of this movie kind of is hokey to me personally. It kind of loses me a little bit.
Is it ever?
It's
Mhm.
you know, Nancy is in a nightmare. She wakes up. This is actually one of the best. This is actually a jump scare that still sticks with me to this day. She's sitting on her bed, just chilling. Then all of a sudden, Freddy just jumps from the other side of the bed on the ground, I guess. Scared the hell out of me the first time I watched it because I wasn't expecting it.
Right. No, it's a
But,
good jump scare.
But I kind of just don't like the fact that she kind of like Kevin McAllister Home Alone this house.
Oh, I wrote the same thing down.
I figured we'd all write the same thing.
Well, I wrote that down too. Booby trap.
know,
I said.
It's like, is the wet bandits coming after her? Or is it Freddy Krueger?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, Drew, what are your thoughts, Drew? Because I know we probably all think the same thing.
So like the good thing is I actually, when you're talking about jump scares, like that's kind of one of my pet peeves in movies. Like
Ugh.
you'd better do them well. You better do them well, or I'm gonna come at you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Unlike the
7.
nun, who did 1 million for no reason. Anyway.
Like they only did like 11 in this movie. 11, which is in what? It's an hour and what 30 minutes, I think what the runtime is, like hour 35 or something like that. So
Yeah,
11
it's not real long.
in an hour and a half movie. That's a pretty good number. But like the frequency in the last like 20 minutes of the movie
Right.
is you got Freddy's coming out of the bed, with his claw coming out of the bed. Then you got when he jumps out at Nancy. That's like at the hour and 20 mark. Then you got when Freddy jumped out from behind Nancy's bed when she woke up from the nightmare. And then the last one is, with him bursting through the door and grabs Nancy's mother. Those are your jump scares towards the end. Like to me, I thought they did them perfectly.
Right.
Brian, what are your thoughts on this last little sequence?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm totally with you. And like I said, Kevin McAllister, Home Alone was exactly the description that I wrote down thinking about it. And I think it's and plus, I mean, I never really understood because I guess from movie to movie they changed the mythology a little bit, especially like in Dream, in the third one. But I don't. understand why. I mean, if you're in a dream, you can do anything, which they prove that in that movie. But yet, you're setting up, physical traps around your house that are, may or may not. I mean, are they going to be there whenever you're asleep, kind of
Right.
thing? It's just I never really understood that. It always took me out of it for sure.
Mike?
So I'm guessing the only thing I can come up with, and I still don't like it. It's very, like you said, it's very Home Alone. Um, the only thing I can really think of to justify it is he's brought into the real world, is he not? Is because when Freddy is brought into the real world, as we see in Nightmare 2, which is way too much. But I mean, I mean, if Freddy's brought into the real world at all, then I guess he becomes a little bit mortal, if it's the way that I understand it. So if that's the case, okay, it's justifiable, but that's still not a good scene. The battle between the two should be awesome. They're finally getting to meet. Here we go. We finally get to see our badass heroine defeat this burned freak guy. And there's some hokey stuff in there. And I actually, he's chasing her around the room and she's hitting him with pots and pans or whatever, vases and all this stuff. I just didn't like it. I thought that the sledgehammer was kind of hokey. I thought that the exploding light bulb was kind of cool. It's a cool scene, but again, the whole sequence is just not one of my favorites in the movie. I mean, and really, the very, very end, the last time you see Freddy, well, kind of, is very anticlimactic if you want to go into that.
Yeah, one more thing that I didn't like is Nancy told her dad, "Hey, I'm going to scream for you," and then the other cop was just like, "You're okay. We're over here. You're good." It's like, go get her dad if she's yelling for her. You know what I'm saying? It's her.
Right.
It's her dad. She's the daughter. Go get the dad faster. But yeah, I agree with you, Mike. The ending's kind of anticlimactic. It's like, if we're not scared of you, you can't affect us. It's like, really,
Right.
Like
that's what
sticks and
stops Freddy.
stones.
It's like the thing is like 1978, a night or Halloween came out, and you couldn't kill Michael, but all you got to do is just not be scared of Freddy, and he
Right.
can't hurt you. I mean, I know it's different, but it kind of makes Freddy look weaker. But
Right. And
what? Go ahead.
right. Well, in 1978, that Halloween, I mean, that movie's left open ended because you're supposed to not know if Michael, and we'll break it down, but you're supposed to not know if Michael is human or is he a little bit more than human. What is this guy? The shape is what he was called in the script, the shape, and so that's what John Carpenter was going for. In this was Wes Craven's original ending, was to just, I'm not scared of you anymore, and it's a good message, I guess, but it doesn't make for a good horror. It makes for a bad horror ending. I mean. And look, man, he's being set on fire and it doesn't matter. And the whole thing is just a little hokey. It's a hokey way to end it. And I'm not scared of you anymore. And you just disappear. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it either because it leaves it open ended, but it doesn't and we'll get to that. If they were going to do that, they should have just ended it right there. But they didn't end it right there.
I agree.
Right. But they didn't end it right there. So let's go into that.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so the very very ending is, to me, I mean, I guess if you're going to have the car, with the Freddy sweater, green and the green and red top come down, that was it's kind of cheesy, but that was like an okay, I guess, way to end it. But once you have Nancy's mom gets sucked back into the door. So it's like, okay, was this obviously wasn't a really happy ending. This was a dream. Was this Nancy's dream, or was this her mom's dream, or what? It just kind of leaves it just out and about. I guess the point was to prove that, oh yeah, well, Freddy's not really dead, but it was still kind of, I don't even think they knew how they really wanted to end it, to be honest.
Go ahead, Drew. Yeah, I want to bounce off.
Yeah, I'm like that with him. It's almost like they were kind of confused how they wanted it, and they wanted to make sure that okay, do we do it this way, and it kind of is a definite, or do we do it this way? It's almost kind of like they just didn't know what to do with it, and that's really what Brian says. It just kind of stuck with me is that they didn't know what they wanted to do, so they kind of just went along with it.
Yeah, Brian, you made a good point when you said whose dream is it? Because I wrote down in my notes Nancy was in the car with all of her 3 friends who died, And then the mom got sucked into the house. So whose dream was that? It really is a very confusing ending to me. I really don't know what the heck they were doing either, to be honest with you. But yeah, I guess I just want to leave it really, really open ended so you could think about it or just bounce a sequel off of it. I really don't know what was going on there.
Right.
Part of me thinks, do you think they were actually thinking about a sequel then?
Well, I have your answer. So, if you watch Never Sleep Again, the documentary, which is like 1,000,000 hours long, but really good, goes over the whole franchise, how it was made, and everything was done. They talk about that's why that ending ended up being in there. Because originally, Wes Craven just wanted the "I'm not scared of you," "Bye bye goes Freddy," and then she opens the door and everything's all nice and sunny and all that stuff, and that's the end. That's the end Wes really wanted. And the car being red and green stripe, haha, Freddy's got you again. And then the mom being ripped through the window. The double ending was all New Line. It was
Uh,
all it was all New Line's doing because they saw money as they were making it. They saw money in the Freddy Krueger character, and apparently not enough money because in Nightmare 2 they tried to do someone else that wasn't Robert Englund, and that shit wasn't going to work because Robert Englund, which we could talk about, Robert Englund is the freaking man, and he's not so much ha ha Freddy in this movie. He's a lot of very scary Freddy, and I like that about this movie. I like some of the funny Freddy stuff, but in this movie, it's the first time I ever saw it. He's terrifying.
I agree.
right.
I really like this Freddy a lot.
Yes. Uh,
He doesn't really say funny one-liners. The stuff he does to his victims is funny, like
Right,
cutting your own fingers
he's
off,
toying
cutting
with
your
them,
chest open. Exactly.
right.
It's like
playing
you
with
don't.
his food.
It's like you think you have a chance, but you really don't because he just cuts his fingers off and grows them right back. I love the
Right,
psychological fear that he puts into his victims.
right.
So we kind of talked about this during the movie or during this breakdown, but I wrote down in my notes what. So which one of the two famous kills in this movie is your most memorable or your favorite? Tina with the getting drug up the roof and the wall and then getting slashed, or Glenn getting sucked into the waterbed and having all the blood sprayed onto the ceiling? Which one is you guys' favorite? My personal favorite, and it's Tina's definitely, just because it's the very beginning of a new franchise. It sucks you right in with her. It introduces Freddy.
It's
Like
perfect.
I will never forget the scene in the beginning where she's like, "Is this God?" And then he's like, "This is God." That line. That line is so
Yes.
good. That just hooks me in. And yeah, Tina's death is just the best to me. It's just like that's the most what the hell kill in this whole movie. It's great. Brian?
No, I agree. Tina's definitely. I touched on that a little bit earlier. Tina's definitely my favorite one now, as opposed to when I was younger and with the Drew kill or Glenn kill. Sorry.
I was like, Drew's
Drew, go
dead,
ahead.
man.
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, I mean that's like I said. It's kind of weird because I told y'all my favorite scene is the Tina. The Tina scene. That's like my favorite scene. And I'm actually went back to my favorite kill, and this one's actually Glenn. My favorite scene overall because I'm taking the scene just in
Right,
general.
right.
Like, bam, that's my that's what I think of. That scene right there is where my mind goes to when I think back to it. But Glenn's like my favorite kill in the movie.
Mike?
My favorite kill out of I'm right there with you, Drew. My favorite kill out of the two is Glenn, just because of how memorable it is, and you don't really see that coming. All that blood, you don't see it coming. My favorite scene, however, I know I said the classroom, but it's real close with the death of Tina. Her getting dragged up the wall and stuff is again not something I expected, but just as far as a kill goes, it's kind of hard to beat the Glenn kill.
Yeah, those two are definitely the most iconic. Two are, it's definitely the two of the best in the entire series, most
Mm.
memorable. I wrote down in my notes just a couple of nitpicks that I have. Um, I want to just touch on jump scares real quick. In the very beginning of the movie, Glenn, Tina, and Nancy are sitting inside eating popcorn snacks, and they hear something outside. They're talking about their nightmares they have, and they go outside, and Glenn Says, who's there? Who's there? And nobody answers, and he turns around, and then Rod just tackles him. It's a big jump scare. I hate those kind of jump scares, guys. I hate horror movies that use fake jump scares. Like, if it's not really something, like, to me, when I watch a jump scare, I put myself in that person's point of view.
Right.
I am not going to be scared of a cat jumping out of a cabinet. I
No.
will be scared
Oh, I
if I'm
would.
sitting on my bed and a burnt man in a red and green sweater jumps from the other side of the bed
Right.
with
Well,
with a razor glove. You know what I'm saying? Does that make
yeah,
sense?
I get what you're saying too, but a lot of times, like with these jump scares and horror movies, I'm not saying like every time they're like this, but like you're talking about like a cat coming out of a cabinet. Imagine if you were that character and you were in this situation and a cat jumped out of that cabinet. You trying to tell me that you wouldn't be scared?
I mean, I would be scared, but like, if you're going to do that, don't put a super loud, beam of music with it.
Oh, see,
Like,
I'm with you on this.
I'm
I'm
with
just
you on
saying,
that as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
like in the 1978 Halloween, whenever Dr.
Yeah.
Loomis is he's just thinking, then like the cop puts his hand on his shoulder or whatever. There's no that could be a jump scare if they put the noise with it, but he just turns
Right.
around and he's like, "Oh, you scared me." That's a effective. You know what I'm saying? I hate jump scares. Go ahead, guys. If you got any nitpicks, that's one of my nitpicks besides the ending. Go ahead, Mike.
I got one. I have. Well, we went over the double ending and we went over the jail kill. So those are my two big negatives, my two nitpicks. In an overall great movie, at least in my opinion. Um, but the ending that we talked about, I know I know it was 1984, but man, when they pull that dummy through the window,
Yeah,
it takes me right out of that scene, man. I can't help it. You, especially once you realize that's a dummy, and it doesn't take very much to see. It looks like a dummy. It looks like a plush doll almost. And they used other dummies earlier in the movie. With they covered it real well. And then you get to this scene and they don't do a good job at all. And I think it's actually what Wes said is that they just left it in because they thought, heck, it's at the end anyway. Who's going to say anything
they're
at
not
this
gonna
point?
notice it.
He
Yeah.
he literally said I think we've already made them crap themselves. I think we're good. And so I mean it is a nitpick definitely, but it takes me out of that scene for sure.
go ahead, Brian. It does look horrible.
Well, the practical effects I think are amazing in this movie,
Yes.
but with that said, you can't really talk about terrible practical effects without the tongue through the phone, the
I
tongue through
was
the
gonna
phone effect.
say.
That thing is, it doesn't even look good. Like it
Oh, it's
just
so
looks all
bad.
weird looking. And it reminds me of, I don't know if you guys have ever, I know a lot of people who are listening are probably fans of the Big Bang Theory, but there's an episode where Howard creates these two like making out looking pieces, and it has almost the it has almost the exact same looking effect, and this
Right.
reminds me of, but yeah, that part that's terrible. And I've already kind of gone over the booby trapping thing. To me was my only really blood nitpick of the movie.
Drew.
Yeah, I mean, he got mine when I was gonna say that just that the tongue through the phone was just
Ah,
awful. So before, like, what was y'all's least favorite kill? What was the least favorite kill for you guys on this one?
Rod.
I think yes, Rod.
yep,
I guess I'm the only one that had a different one
we're
then.
unanimous with Rod.
I didn't
You
see
going with the mom?
The Marge kill.
Oh, the Marge kill is bad. It's a bad kill.
I kind of had to go with that one. I just like it's the only one. I mean, the rod. When I put it this way, when I watched it before and I remembered, I'm like, okay, it's. When I watched it, I wasn't like, oh, nitpicking. Whereas now, we've seen so many movies, and you see some
Right.
really good ones, and you see some bad ones, and you see it now, and you're like, oh man, that was really, that was really kind of crappy. But for me, Marge's kill was my least favorite.
And that makes sense. It's a really bad kill. But
Yeah.
the effects on it aren't that bad where they kind of sink her into the bed and you get the blue lighting and stuff. The effects are okay, but the kill, it's a little tame compared to the other kills in the movie. Yeah.
I agree with that. I do not
Right.
like that part.
Uh, and it's kind of not necessary to even kill Marge because the whole point of this is to kill the teenagers. And I
Right.
don't really see the point of killing Marge.
To
who, by the-
punish them. Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
right. And I think she's a strong character as far as just being an alcoholic. I think she's the yin and the yang with Nancy, where you get the strong backbone, independent heroine composed as opposed to her mom, who is a drunk alcoholic and can't handle the guilt and can't handle the grief of what they did to Freddie. And then you get the dad who just ignores it all and buries himself in his work. And I think those are probably my two favorite characters outside of Nancy or Nancy's parents. What are some of your guys' favorite characters?
Go
Uh,
ahead, Drew.
I'm gonna have to go with Nancy just because of it's nice to see like what most horror movies
Right.
they don't give these strong characteristics to the female leads as they do sometimes in the male leads. So it was nice to see that hey she was on top of it. And this is in '84. It's like she's a teen, she's figuring stuff out and she's
Right.
like thinking it through, she's making a plan, she's going through it, and like everybody else is kind of like but she's just like no, we got this.
I
So
love that about
she's
her. Yeah.
definitely my favorite. She's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I agree. I like Nancy too. She's I mean, we didn't like the ending, but it's smart to set up booby traps to catch the
Right.
guy. But
Right.
and yeah, I mean, back then it was a different time. It was cool to give a female, another female besides Jamie Lee Curtis, um, you know, to use her as a hero, a hero or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's
Yeah.
Brian, who's your favorite character?
Well, I mean, Heather Langenkamp and Nancy is my favorite character, like for sure. But that's why my three favorite nightmares are the three that she's in. But just go a different route. I'm gonna go with Nancy's dad.
Oh,
Um,
love it. Love it.
and I don't like I feel like he's a good strong character. I think as Donald Thompson is his name, I believe, and I like to see him, especially in the when he gets a little bit older. So I like it. I like it.
All right, I think best way to close this review out, guys, just let's rate the movie 1 to 10, and since we all met on Twitter, let's throw our Twitter ads out there if they want to follow us, ask any questions. Is that cool with y'all?
I'm cool with that.
It's great.
All right. First of all, the horror podcast Twitter is at Don't Go Out There, and my rating of this movie, I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I think it holds up well 35 years later. I think Freddy is a really, really cool villain. Um, I think even though there's not a lot of deaths, I think the two deaths are really good.
Right.
I'm not gonna let Rod's bad death bring the other two down.
Yeah, it doesn't kill off.
No, it doesn't.
And like we said earlier, the hallway scene is really good. Yeah, I'm gonna go 8.5. I mean, the nitpicky stuff, but it still holds up to me 35 years later.
By the way, hashtag Team Rod probably isn't the best hashtag for the.
I was just thinking that. I thought that when we said it, but I was going to let it fly, brother. Hashtag Team Rod. That's a shirt if we ever get to make shirts, by the way.
Oh, am I Brian? You want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna 8.5 sounds pretty perfect, but I'm not gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna go up to a 9, just because of how well it holds up. We are very, very small nitpicky things for a movie that is 30 plus years old. So I'm right there. I think it's almost the perfect movie. So and my Twitter at bhath4.
I guess I'll go next, Drew. We'll close with you. I'm going to give it, I'm going to go with Nico. There's only so many numbers you can do here. I'm going to agree with Nico and go about an 8.5. Like you said, everything that we love still holds up really well. The glove in the shower scene or the bathtub scene, that still holds up. It's still creepy. The hallway scene is still creepy. All the kill or the two kills that are really good are still really good. Everything holds up really well for being, again, 35 years old now.
The marshmallow stairs. We never talked about how great the marshmallow stairs
are. We
talked about things holding up.
Oh man, I forgot about sticky stairs. Yeah, right. Okay, man, you won't make me want to bump it down. No, 8.5 is about perfect. So I'm gonna go 8.5. And again, it's not my favorite Freddy movie. That's Nightmare 3, which I think is the perfect combination of scary Freddy and funny Freddy. He's got some one-liners. That's the perfect combo of the two, because after 3 is when we get into cool graphics, that Freddy, and that's not good. So I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Hey, Drew, after you do your review, let's talk about comparing 1 versus 3 real quick. Just real quick, because you brought that up.
I was like you guys, like the 8. Y'all are like that's at the 8.5. I'm going to strictly go with the 9 because You gotta believe that the era that it was put
Right,
in,
right.
the way it was made, like the kills, the characters themselves, and the main character, which is obviously Freddy, is held up over these years. People, you'll say Freddy, and they're like, oh, they know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
So the longevity of this movie is the reason why I'm going 9.
Yeah, I know we was going to close, but Mike brought up the point. I think I tweeted out the other night. I thought the third was the best, but I'm gonna be honest, guys. I rewatched the third one, and it is great. Don't get me wrong, but that ending with the guy going to
Well,
I
yeah,
hate the ending so much in the third one
it is a
that
bad end.
I mean the puppet kill, the is prime time bitch, that kill,
Oh, so many
so
good kills.
good. Robert Englund, he winged that kill, or he winged that line, but the ending in the third one is just so bad to me. I got to give the original the nod.
Nice.
What you guys thoughts on that?
I guess I already said mine. I like 3 over 1 only because now, as far as if its effectiveness and being scary, 1 takes the cake. That's not even close. But as far as the enjoyment I get out of the movie, I'm going to go 3. It's kind of, I have more fun watching 3 as far as just like a sit down and a rewatch. I'd rather rewatch 3 than rewatch 1, but they're still both really great. And the end is crap. It's dog shit. And, and I'll agree with you on that. But as far as the welcome to prime time, bitch, like all that stuff, I really like that, man. That is classic Freddy. Now, again, in 4 and 5, they completely go off the rails with the Freddy one-liners, but 3 does it so perfect. So that's why I have 3 as my number 1.
You talking about one-liners? Here's a one-liner. You don't fuck with the original.
Oh, hey, you just quoted Scream. You just quoted Scream. One of the best horror movies of all time. Good for you.
Ding, ding, ding. No,
Brian,
I'm the same
which one you
way.
picking?
I'm the same way. When I was younger, 3 used to be my favorite, but upon rewatch, I'd sat down probably about 3 or 4 months ago and started at 1 and watched them all through and have a completely different outlook on them. And I don't know, it's because you watch them when you're older and it's different than you remember. Like
Oh, definitely.
I used to always quote, every town has an Elm Street, but hell, that's from the worst one probably, or Freddy's Dead. But I definitely, one to me, especially upon rewatch, is the best one. My favorite one's not even either one of them. It's Wes Craven's New Nightmare, but the best one probably to me is this one.
Yeah, I know. Every ranking in the world has the first one first. I don't know. There's something about the fun, the little added element of fun. And by the way, let's not break down 3. Let's save it. All right, Nico, take us home, man. Let's do it.
All right, guys.
Oh,
First
my
of all,
at it. Hold on. My at is SettleMLCFB. Twitter's SettleMLCFB.
all right. First of all, I just want to say thank my other 3 co-hosts. I remember just tweeting saying, Mike, Drew, hey man, we all love horror movies. We all talk about it on Twitter. We're a few of us who do it. And then my man Brian starts tweeting all these pictures from
Oh,
his office or
Oh,
whatever. He's got
dude,
all these signed memorabilia. He's got
you're the
this.
man.
Yeah, he is outclassing us big time when it comes to memorabilia. But I just want to thank you guys for doing this with me, taking time out of your day. And like I said, our Twitter is at Don't Go Out There. If you have any positive, constructive criticism, let any of us know. This is our first time doing it, and I really enjoyed talking about it with you guys. I think
Me
all of
too,
you
man.
enjoyed it too.
oh yeah.
And
Definitely.
we're going to keep doing this. The next movie we're going to review is 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween.
Woohoo!
Michael's favorite. It's only because his name is Michael in the movie.
Oh, that's
But
not why. I love that movie.
Also,
yeah,
like, hey, if y'all have a movie that y'all think we haven't watched, or like a whatever
Right.
you want us to review, drop us one. We'll watch it and
Heck
review
yeah,
it.
man. Heck yeah.
but don't be real. Don't go super indie or something small. Like give us some famous movies. Some well known ones. But and if you have any questions, tweet at us. Let us know if you have any horror movie questions, or tweet us your thoughts or whatever. But I just want to thank all my 3 co-hosts once again for doing this with me, and I want to thank all the people who listen. I appreciate it. Taking time out of your day to listen to our thoughts. You know, we're not film experts. We're just four regular guys, you know, who like horror movies. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for your time.
See you next week.
Cannot agree more. We'll see you.
Thank you.